because it has many, many avenues that it covers. And in that particular instance, you don't necessarily have to have a policy that's going to cover the entire mortgage, but you at least want to cover the majority of it. You want your family to be safe for 10 years at least, so that they can determine whether they want to do something different or not. You can cover the entire mortgage if that's what you so choose to do, but you don't have to.
Okay. It kind of start us from the basics of life insurance. You know, most of us have insurance through our employer. It's usually up to your term and up to your salary, something like that. But of course, if you leave that employer, that doesn't follow you.
It does not.
So what's can it kind of give us, I would say, a beginner's policy, something that people can get in comfortably and pay.
Right. Well, that actually makes me think of two things. First, let me reverse back to what you said about having a policy through your company, your employer. Those are great. It's a group policy, but you don't own that. Your company owns that policy. I don't know if you heard the whole thing with Sears. Sears just did an entire post. All of their employees, including their retirees, they removed the entire life insurance piece from the package. So all those people who paid in it for years and years and years, they were dropped because Sears decided that was it.
It's because of their bankruptcy? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
So that is the downside to just depending on a policy through your employer, because you don't own that.
Right.
So if the employer says, we're done with it, it's done. So that was really sad for all of those people that were employed by Sears and who were retired. I mean, they retired from there. So they're thinking, I paid into this life policy
right.
and I'm going to have this money if anything happens. Now they don't.
Right.
It's over. I just wanted to touch on that piece right there. And then the second thing you were saying, give you the basics of a life insurance policy. So I get a lot of people that want to know, how do I determine how much policy I need? And my best response for that would be enough to cover the dime.
Okay.
Now, dime is an acronym. And I'm just going to tell you what that means.
Please.
All right. So, you want to have enough of a policy to cover you in the event of your death. Just an expense for whatever, your funeral.
Like final expense.
Your final expense. If you decide to be cremated, that's still an expense. So you want to have enough for that. The I is for income replacement. So if something happens to you, and your husband has been counting on your income all that time, you want them to feel comfortable in your absence.
Okay.
And then the M is for mortgage. That goes into the mortgage protection. So you do want to have enough to either help cover the entire mortgage or just a portion of it. And you can do that in sections. And then the E is for every other expense that could happen. So it doesn't have to be $1 million policy. It doesn't even have to be a $500,000 policy. You just need enough to fit that little program, whatever that program is for you in your life.
So what are some of the biggest objections you hear for people not wanting to have insurance, to buy insurance? Is it cost?
Honestly, the biggest objection is not having the education, not really understanding what life insurance is. People get so caught up in, they think of the old time when the insurance man come knocking at the door and collect a payment, and that's all they think about. But they don't understand that the whole purpose of a life insurance policy is to create generational wealth for your family. If you never had anything in place, here come the GoFundMe accounts.
Right, yeah.
But if you have this already there to help secure the bag, then you don't have to worry about that. It's like putting your kids right here on your shoulders and preparing them. So if anything happens, they don't have to fall back and not have anything to fall on. They have a cushion there. And then as long as they're continuing to share that with their children, now you're creating that legacy and building that generational wealth through the policy. I read
something in the African American community that the most generational wealth was gained through life insurance policies and through inheriting land.
Correct.
Something like that. I don't have the exact percentages.
Right.
But, and I won't get too political, but stuff that was not taken by eminent domain,
right,
we gained that through land and through insurance policies. Because, like you said, in the 40s, the 50s, there was the insurance man knocking at the door and things like that. And a lot of our grandmothers, great grandmothers, invested in things like that,
right?
Because they didn't want to leave nothing.
Exactly.
You know. So I've heard a lot of those stories about. That's the only reason, like, you know, Mama left me this. That's the only reason I was able to buy this house. And,
right.
You know, stuff like that. So,
absolutely.
You know, is that still, I mean, you know, in your industry, is that still relevant? Do you still see that this is a way to, I guess, maintain a savings, so to speak, without truly putting aside, you know, enough that your children have $1 million if something were to happen to you?
Definitely. So the practicality of it all is that there are 4 things that we actually have. So right now, if you think about it, we have Social Security.
Not really.
Right. Which, according to the most recent article, it'll be bankrupt by 2035. But I'm just saying, what people think in their mind is they have Social Security, which is going to be going away. They thought they had pensions. Those are no longer even in play. Yeah. There's no such thing as a pension anymore. And so really all you have left is a personal savings account or your 401k.
I'll laugh because
I mean,
and in this job market, you rarely have that because you don't stay at a company long enough to gain anything.
Exactly. And that's where the life insurance policy comes into play. Because honestly, it really takes over the 401k. The 401k was put in place to become your retirement plan. But they tax you so hard on it.
They do.
That you can't retire off that. And like you just said, a lot of people aren't employed long enough to really build a 401k and for that to really be the basis for their retirement. So the life insurance plan, which doesn't cost you half as much as a 401k, you can put into it as much as you want. And there are different ones that you can, you know, utilize for that. But the gains are so much better and the risk is less.
So I'm going to give you a scenario. So, you know, take 2 mommies like us. We, you know, moms, husbands, normal income, nothing out of the, you know, we're not banking no money around here. You know, we got kids that we want to help, you know, secure in the event of something happens to us. What's an ideal policy to start at 2 moms in their transition year, transition into 40? Like what's something to start at now, and assuming, you know, we live a pretty normal life, you know,
right?
What's something to start at?
Just a basic policy. Honestly, you could start with a $25,000 policy. It's not going to cover the mortgage, but it's going to help out if something happens. With a 2-income household, I would definitely go a $50,000 policy. And that would be on each person. Right. On you as the wife and on your husband. And then, of course, you get the riders or you get a separate policy for the children. You can start with a $5,000 or $10,000 policy.
And I'm glad you said that. What's the purpose of doing the children policies?
Because anything can happen. I mean, we all bleed red blood and we all die. That's a fact. And I mean, anything can happen. If anything were to happen to them, I mean, it's something that you really don't think about because we only think of ourselves as adults. And you only ever think about older people dying. But then you can see through the media that, I mean, people are dying younger and younger. And anything can happen.
So a simple policy, you're saying, something like that, is that what you consider a term? Is that a term policy?
Well, you can do term or whole. Term life, let me just share with you the difference between the two. A term policy is one that lasts for a specific amount of time. So it can be a 10-year term, 20-year term, 30-year term. Term policies are typically less expensive than a whole life policy. And when you're younger, I always say you start out with a term policy so you can get a lower rate and get that coverage for at least the 30, 40 years. And then you can always convert that to a whole life policy later. A whole life policy is one that the premium is going to remain the same throughout the life of the policy. So it typically goes from day 1 to age 121. Oh, wow. It just depends on who the carrier is.
Are those more expensive?
They are a little bit. It just depends on on the circumstances. A lot of it, the policies are based on, of course, your medical history. Even though we have policies where there's no medical exam, you still have, they still are able to see whether you're on any medications. And some policies actually ask those questions.
Yeah. So let's get to the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah.
If something were to happen, does a family get that full insurance policy? Because I've heard stories where people are paid into policies and then something happened to their grandfather or grandmother and that policy was not paid in full.
Okay.
What are some of the circumstances around that?
Okay, and I'm glad you asked that question. So a lot of people get policies that they have not read the fine print. There are policies that are decreasing policies, and they decrease over time.
As you age?
As you age.
Wow.
And most of those are your group policies through your employer.
Oh, okay.
They decrease over time as you age. So you really have to be careful when getting a policy so that you can so that you can read the fine print, have an agent such as myself to come in and explain it. And what we like to do is do policy reviews for people.
Okay.
If you already have a policy in place, I'll be happy to take a look at it, read through it, and just I can show you whether it's going to decrease over time on you or remain level.
Another issue is this, which you touched on a little bit about the medical history and things like that. But, we pride ourselves as trying to be carb free. Like you say.
All right.
But sometimes, we run into the height weight issue. You not so much with the height. Me so much with the weight. But are there policies that you can still get it? Is this,
yes,
curvy women?
There are policies. They are guaranteed issue.
Okay.
Some of them still have a height weight requirement, but there are some that don't. So again, you just have to, you got to be able to go through the policies and determine which one is going to be the best fit for your client.
Okay. Okay. And so are there policies? I'm sorry, I got a lot of questions. I'm like a survey.
It's okay. You go right ahead.
I'm like a survey. So are there policies? I understand that there are policies that you can also borrow against.
Those would be the whole life policies.
Okay.
Okay. And so then to go back to the question you asked about people sometimes when they pass find out there's no money available or they don't get as much as they thought. That's because possibly the insured or deceased, yes, borrowed against that policy and didn't pay it back.
See, now they ain't tell the truth. See,
She didn't tell all
the truth.
So that can happen because what will happen, you can borrow against the policy, but if you don't put it back, then your beneficiary is only going to get whatever's left.
How you think she kept bailing Ray Ray out of jail?
You're right. You're right.
Don't nobody got extra bail money.
And she can't keep putting the house up there.
Yeah. So that's how Nana got Ray Ray out of jail.
But now I will say this, it's also a good thing because I don't know if you knew this or not, but Master P, when he first got started, he actually used his life insurance policy, $10,000 of his policy to start No Limit Records.
No, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
You did? Yeah. You didn't know that.
So, I mean,
You been
so
doing
yeah.
insurance at work?
Huh?
You've been doing a lot of insurance research?
How do you want me to answer that?
Uh-oh.
I don't. I don't want to know why you know.
I've been working in insurance
You
for
have.
20 years.
You have. You mean 30 years. But
I'm licensed.
You're right.
That's why I ain't asking no questions.
I'm not asking because I need. I'm asking for the crowd.
Okay.
But yes. So
for the culture.
Yes, for the culture. So tell me about annuities. Is that for something to prepare for retirement?
Yes.
Okay.
Annuities are a great way to have a savings. And you can actually live off of an annuity. Say you have a 401k, you've left your job and you move that over into an annuity. Now you've created a savings account that has no risk. You're putting that money in, it's going in, and then you can actually live off of the interest.
Oh, okay.
So that's one way to still keep that savings, and then it's also protected by the life insurance policy. So it's going to be there for your beneficiaries if something were to happen to you. And you can still live off the interest without ever touching that money.
Gotcha. Let me go back to the whole life. So borrowing against